So you're thinking about moving to Fort Mill, South Carolina, but before you make that move, you want to know a little bit more about the lifestyle, the pros, the cons, the advantages and disadvantages of living in Fort Mill. So whether you're moving across town or across country, this video is for you. So stick around, we're going to unpack it right now. If this is your first time to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe and bell notification so you can be the first to learn about the market conditions right here in the Queen City. If we haven't met before, my name is Dean Hardy. I'm a local realtor, team lead, and host of this channel. And I get calls, text messages, and emails every single day from people like you. And I absolutely love it. So if you're thinking about making a move to Charlotte, whether it's 9 days, 90 days, go ahead, reach out to me today. I'm going to put my contact information right below there in the description. I would love to connect with you, learn a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish, and help you and your family make a nice smooth move right here to Charlotte. So a fun fact about Fort Mill, you can live in South Carolina and be further north than some of the suburbs on the southeast side of town and live in Charlotte, North Carolina. You see, the state line isn't straight. It's actually diagonal, and Fort Mill is at the tip of that, which brings us really to pro number one, which is its location. It is really close to everything that Charlotte has to offer and still have the advantages of being a little bit further out and being across the state line in South Carolina. So if you are living in Fort Mill and you need to drive to, let's say, uptown because that's where your work is, it's about a 25-minute drive. If you need access to the airport, it's about a 30-minute drive, really easy on 485. Now, the other two major employment hubs in the South Charlotte area are South Park and Ballantyne. So if you're working in South Park, it's about a 25, 30-minute drive because there's a little more back road once you get off the highway than going to a straight shot on 77 to Uptown. But if you're in Ballantyne, it's much easier. It's about a 15-minute drive. Now, those commute times, those 30 minutes, 25-minute drives, that does not include traffic. So Charlotte's traffic can be a little hairy at time, but it's not as bad as some of the metropolitan large areas. So if you're moving from, let's say, like Atlanta, where you're literally stuck in traffic, Charlotte traffic does move unless there's an accident, of course. But as far as just straight drive times, Charlotte's location to Fort Mill is really, really doable. All right, pro number two is going to be the diversity of the homes in Fort Mill. Now, for the context of this comment, we do have townhouses and condominiums in Fort Mill, but the majority of homes are going to be single family homes. But the diversity is there, and regardless of what you're looking for, Fort Mill is probably gonna have it for you. So just to give you a couple of examples, so near the downtown area that's built up around there, you're gonna see your old, what they call mill houses. So they are brick ranch style homes. They were built in the mid-century. What's nice about these is a lot of people have bought them, either individuals and or investors, and updated them. So even though they're not large, they're gonna be around 1,700 square feet. As far as the square footage size, but a lot of them, like I say, have been updated, and not just cosmetically. People have come in and taken walls out, structurally changed it so you have that more open concept floor plans that's modern, that wasn't popular back then. So that's one style. Of course, there's a bunch of subdivisions around. So Fort Mill really exploded about 15, 20 years ago. So you're gonna see a lot of subdivisions right around that 2000 to 2010 area. There's a ton of subdivisions around there, so there's more traditional styles, and there's some newer constructions that are still building to this day, so they're going to be typically a little bit larger in square footage, going to have more updated amenities in there. The styles of the homes have changed in builders over the past 10 or 15 years. Right now, the old southern charm look with those big wraparound porches, multiple different color homes, kind of like the Rainbow Row in the Charleston. That's very popular now, so you're going to have that. And of course, you're going to have custom homes because Fort Mill is quite affluent. You're going to see large homes built on single parcels of land. Developers have come in. Now, you do have access as well in small sections to the lake and the river in Fort Mill. Most of the homes, admittedly, that if you're looking for pure lakefront homes, are going to be in TDK. Fort Mill and TKK kind of run together, so they're right next to each other. So there's a lot more opportunities in TKK if you want a home that's actually on the lake, but you do have a few options in Fort Mill. And in Fort Mill, there's a ton of public access for boat docks. If you want to go ahead and take your boat and launch it publicly in one of the docks, there's a ton of options around there. So if you like taking your boat out of the weekend, but you don't necessarily need to live on the lake, Fort Mill has that. And again, regardless of the style of the home that you have, Fort Mill has a variety of them. So the third pro is going to be the local school district. And this is probably one of the most popular things that I hear. People typically move to Fort Mill or choose Fort Mill because they want to be in that school district. Fort Mill School District is the #1 school district rated in the entire state of South Carolina. So people are coming here with families just to get into that school district. There is 20 schools, public schools in total. There is 11 elementary, there is 6 middle schools, and there is 3 different high schools, and they still continue to build new schools all the time. Now, Fort Mill doesn't have a huge population. It's around 30,000, slightly under. So as you can see that the school class, was it teacher to student ratio in the classes is still very small in there in that school district. Go on to niche.com. That's a great resource if you want to check out individual schools, but the school district as a whole is an A+. And again, people that are moving there with families really want to get into that school district. Number 4 is their downtown area. Fort Mill has its own Main Street. And yes, it's actually called Main Street. It's mid-century buildings that have been renovated and bought by local companies and there's retail space down there. There is restaurants down there. There's some microbreweries down there. There's a vet down there. Now, guys, I'm talking to you here for a second, so you ladies can tune out. But they have, guys, a traditional barbershop on Main Street. The owners had it for like 40 years. You know, the kind that has that red and white twirly pole outside. You can go in there. You can talk to this guy. You can learn all the gossip about the town. And at the end, they actually give you a neck shave when they kind of clean you up with a cutthroat razor and hot foam and a hot towel at the end. Your face and your neck will feel like it's been born again. But anyway, ladies, you can tune back in here. So I know that might not be your cup of tea, but there's, like I say, restaurants, there's coffee shops. So there's a great place to go and walk in downtown Fort Mill. So coming in at number 5 is the property taxes. I know this isn't the most sexiest subject, but we're going to talk about it because it does bring value. So property taxes in South Carolina, specifically York County, are lower than Mecklenburg County. So I'm going to go ahead and unpack here in a little bit of home prices, but I'll give you a quick spoiler alert. $480,000 is the medium house price today in Fort Mill. So taking that medium house price, you would have paid $1,600 last year in tax. I'm just going to leave that out there for a second because it's extremely low. Now, if you want to compare to Mecklenburg County, if you had a house that was $480,000, you'd be paying $2,700 in tax. Now, I'm not hating on Charlotte from any stretch of the imagination because that is still really, really low, especially like I say, a lot of my clients move down from like New York where their property taxes, they pay that like every month, it seems like. But that's what the taxes are in Fort Mill. So there are tax advantages for living in Fort Mill. So number 6 pro is going to be the activities. So we kind of talked about downtown. So if that's not necessarily your cup of tea and you want to do something slightly different, Fort Mill has a lot of outdoor activities. So it was originally owned, or one of the original owners, should I say, was the Springs family. And they have the Ann Springs Greenway, which is a protected area that can never be built on. It's thousands of acres. And it's got literally miles and miles of trails for walking, mountain biking, cross-country riding, horse trails. They also have kiddie parks in there. There's conference centers that you can hire out for like weddings. It's very, very pretty. And they protect that. It's highly, highly used, very popular in the area. But one of my favorite things to do over the past couple of years, they've started doing this summer series of concerts. So local bands will go out there. You can take your chairs and just listen. It's free to get in. They have food trucks sometimes. You can take a cooler for your own refreshments. And you can take there and just sit back with your friends and have good conversation, good time. And it's always nice because they're in the summer months. But there's a ton of things. The kids can run around, go wild. You can sit around and just enjoy conversation with your friends. So that's one of my favorite things to do. If you have slightly younger kids, the Walter Elijah Park is another option for you. It's got a huge green grass area, but a lot of kids go there because it's got this really large play area, swings, climbing sets, etc. So they have all of that there. Now, one thing I do want to throw out there when we're talking activities is also Carowinds. Now, if you're not familiar with that, it's a huge park. It's got a ton of roller coasters. It's well known for having one of the highest roller coasters, I think, actually in the world. It's got a lot of things in there, including some different kind of style of rides for young kids all the way through to teenage kids. And it also has a water park that's open there in the summer. So a lot of water slides, plunge pools, those wave pools, those lazy rivers. So it's a good place. You can go and ride some coasters in the morning, go and sit by the pool in the afternoon. So there's a ton of things, and that's right across the state line. So as soon as you cross the North-South Carolina state line, the first exit is actually Carowinds Boulevard. You can't miss it. It's right there. You can see the coasters for miles. All right, so number 7 pro is the community feel that Fort Mill offers. It's a well-established community. It's older community, and you have that different vibe there. It's very separate from Charlotte. So a lot of people move to Fort Mill for whatever reasons, probably one of the reasons I've just gone over, and they've chosen Fort Mill to be their home, to raise their family, to raise, put roots into the community, and it shows. It's very friendly. Now, this next statement, it's not political. I have no interest in discussing politics whatsoever, but after the pandemic, we really saw how Fort Mill, that local community, came together just to help each other out. Now, generally speaking, South Carolina was very less restrictive during that pandemic. Now, I'm going to throw this out there because I hear it a lot, and I do think it brings value to you. It might not be relevant for you, but I got a lot of people that came down from the Northeast and out west that were coming from more restrictive states because South Carolina wasn't as restrictive at all. They were very responsible, opening businesses, trying to get life back to normal as quickly and safely as possible. It wasn't quite like Florida where you see the politicians on TV saying you can't go outside and then you see them on the news channel partying it up down in Florida. It wasn't quite like that, but I did even notice a difference from Fort Mill to, let's say, Charlotte. There was less restrictions on the South Carolina side. Again, I'm not making this as a political statement whatsoever, but I do need to share that with you because I hear that quite a lot. All right, so now we're going to talk about some cons because it does have its downsides. We've gone over some of the pros on there, and I do think those pros do bring value, but there's no perfect place. It just doesn't exist. So the number one con that Fort Mill has is the house prices. It has gotten expensive in Fort Mill to live because it's one of the fastest increasing property values. Now, I kind of unpacked that here for you. So I mentioned it earlier. I kind of gave you a spoiler alert. $480,000 is the median home price in Fort Mill. Now in Charlotte, the metro Charlotte area, it's $420,000. So it's a little bit more expensive than the median in Charlotte. But as far as Fort Mill, the increasing prices has been astronomical. So this past 12 months, rolling 12 months, the prices have increased 11%. Now, other places in Charlotte are, 5, 6, and 7. Fort Mill is 11. Now, Fort Mill has its own real estate market. It's almost like its own bubble of real estate within the metro Charlotte area. And that can be true with many different suburbs or even subdivisions in Charlotte, but Fort Mill is very distinct. So don't look at the metro Charlotte area as a whole and just think that that's what Fort Mill is like. It's not. Fort Mill's got expensive. Now, to give you some specifics, I kind of talked to you about those ranch homes that were downtown, the mill houses, the smaller, older homes. They typically start in the mid to high threes. Now in Fort Mill, if you're looking to get into subdivisions, that's typically start around that 500,000. But on some of these newer subdivisions, some of these can really start at 7, 8, and 900,000, and custom homes can be 7 figures. So it is an expensive area. And again, I think one of the drawing forces is the school district. People are coming down here to get into that school district, and they're willing to pay a premium to get the kids into a school district. And that lower taxes, it has driven the house prices up. And one thing I've noticed about Fort Mill, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't say this with utmost certainty, but I'm very confident that the prices can continue to go up. So if you're thinking about Fort Mill and you're not 100% sure if you want to wait now, pull the trigger now to buy something, or are you going to wait until the house prices go down, it's not happening. Fort Mill is always going to go up. So Fort Mill, I would encourage you to get off the fence right now. Go ahead, give me a call, and let's talk about what you're looking for. All right, so the second con, this is a very real one, is the traffic. So if anybody's living in Fort Mill right now, I'm sure you can attest to this. Go ahead, drop a comment below. Let me know if you agree with this comment or not. But because of the growth that Fort Mill's happening, and it came from an original old small town, the infrastructure of the roads is not quite there. Now, they are increasing roads, they're building, adding on roads, they're building new off and on ramps off onto 77 on two of the main entrances and exit points. But if I can be completely honest, it's not there yet. I mean, traffic still, there's a lot of traffic lights. You do a lot of stopping and starting. You don't typically sit there still in traffic. It's more of a crawl through certain, either 160, which is one of the main roads, or Gold Hill roads. Again, it's the same kind of traffic pattern. So just keep that in mind. And also public transportation. I'm not going to put this as a separate con, but there really isn't a whole lot of public transportation. There's buses that run around. The light rail doesn't go anywhere near Fort Mill. You really have to go to South Charlotte to even get on the blue line, but there really isn't a whole bunch of public transportation. So it's very car dependent. So everybody really has to and needs to have a car, which again can probably add more to than the traffic than take it away. But it is car dependent. Traffic is getting bad. Hopefully it's going to get better with the new changes that they're making right now. And public transportation is not the best. All right, so con number 3 is an interesting one. It's nightlife. So if you are looking to have a good time after 11, 12 o'clock at night, you are going to be very disappointed in Fort Mill because nightlife is really non-existent. Now, if you're anything like me, what we're talking about when we go out with me and the wife and some friends, we go out for some good food, hang out, have a good time. But we're home by about 10 o'clock. So if you're more in my speed, there's a ton of options because there's a lot of restaurants around in Fort Mill that you don't even need to leave Fort Mill to go. Fort Mill, TEK, even Rock Hill as well. So if you want to stay local right on your doorstep, or even semi-local, or even get really adventurous and go to the South Charlotte area, there's a ton of things to do. But if you're looking for a good time, like I say, after 11 or 12 o'clock, you're going to be really disappointed. But again, this comment is kind of subjective. Depending on the season of life you're in, it might not have any value to you, but still want to be transparent, still want to relay that to you because it is a real thing. All right, guys, so I hope this video brought some value to you. I really love doing this and shining some spotlights on different suburbs in and around the Charlotte area. And it's really there for you, just to go ahead and kind of share that with you. And then you can kind of unpack that information and say, hey, Fort Mill might be a place that I would want to live in. This sounds like my speed. Well, if that's the case, go ahead and reach out to me. I'm going to, like I said, put my contact information below. I would love to connect with you, learn a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish here, and I could be your agent of choice to make that nice, smooth move to the Charlotte area. Now, until the next video, I will see you around town, and God bless.